For my Minecraft screencast assessment, I designed an assessment that would look at a student's ability to translate and transcribe DNA into RNA and then ultimately into a final product, which is to represent the protein. If you look through my area, this kind of introduces the project and leads the students to the directions. So for the first part of the assignment, they will, sorry, let me reorient myself. So for the first part, they're going to transcribe the remaining DNA strands and record the sequence of the DNA on their piece of paper. They'll have a separate piece of paper that they'll turn in to me at the end. I have coded out for them that purple represents adenine and blue represents guanine. They should know or be able to apply from what we've learned in class that A pairs with T, C pairs with G, and then fill in the sequence accordingly. You can see over here the initial part DNA strand that I created, and then the rest that the students are asked to create or fill in. For part 2, for part 2, the students will use the leading strand to translate the complementary RNA strand, and then they'll build that and record that again on their paper. And from the RNA strand that students create, they will be asked to plant a line of flowers that follow the coded pattern that they got from their RNA. So then they click to page 2 and it outlines which flower they should plant based on the code that they were able to translate from the RNA, or from the DNA to the RNA, and then ultimately into the protein. Over here is the garden where students will plant their protein flowers to represent the process that they went through from transcription to translation and then into protein synthesis. I think that Minecraft will allow my students to present their learning in a different way but still meet the primary objectives that they need to meet. I will be able to assess each of their steps based on what they have built, first through the building of the DNA strand, then the building of the RNA strand, and then ultimately the planting of the garden, which represents protein synthesis. One advantage to using Minecraft to do this is that it will allow my students to interact in a different way and apply the knowledge that they have into something that's a little bit more meaningful, the final product of building a garden. Typically when we do transcription, translation, and protein synthesis, they're just looking at a bunch of letters, and then the letters just represent more letters, and they have a hard time relating to or thinking about what the end or final product would be. This will allow them to visualize that a little bit more through the creation of something like the flowers. I think that this does a nice job of allowing my students to apply real-world their knowledge in a real-world situation, but I wish that it allowed for a little bit more collaboration. Perhaps that would be a goal for me to expand on this assessment and allow for my students to collaborate more with one another instead of working in isolation. I could do something like a longer DNA strand and have them work together to complete it, but for this assessment it doesn't allow a lot of student collaboration. Again, though, it does allow them to apply what they've learned in class into something more tangible. I think that this will do a good job assessing my students' knowledge of transcription, translation, and protein synthesis, and enable me to understand exactly where they're at and see what kind of deficiencies they hold.